When Isabella was married before coming of age, her father said, "You will marry this summer." It was no longer, "When you grow up." It was now. The girl's heart began to race. "But I still want to study," she said desperately. At the monastery, nuns taught some noble girls to read and write. Her father laughed. It was a bitter laugh. "Girls don't study. Girls stay at home. You are of marriageable age now, and a married woman's place is in her husband's home." She was very young. She still had toy dolls. She still loved climbing trees. She still felt safe when she hugged her mother. But now she was of marriageable age. Poverty drives people to the darkest paths, and throughout history, one of the darkest paths has been the sale of girls. Bride price, lobola, wine carrying. Whatever the name, the process is the same. The groom and his family pay money or property to the bride's family. Thus, the bride changes hands like property, and for families in economic hardship, young girls become a source of income. In this story, I will tell you the true story of Isabella, who was married before coming of age. I want you to watch until the end and leave a comment on the dark pages of the Middle Ages at the end of the video. The first time she heard, "You will marry," Isabella was still a child. Her mother had said it while washing clothes in the garden. As casually as talking about the weather, she had said, "You will marry next summer." Isabella dropped her toy doll. "Marry?" she asked. She knew the word, of course. It was something grown-ups did. But her? This young? "Not yet," her mother said, averting her eyes from her daughter. "But you're engaged now. Later, when you grow up." These words sounded distant to Isabella's ears. But actually, when that grow up came, the girl was still a child. When her father came home that evening, he had a box in his hand. Inside was a bracelet, gold, shiny, heavy. "This is yours now," he said, "an engagement gift." Who had given it? Who would be her husband? Isabella asked. "Lord William's son, Thomas," her father said. But Thomas wasn't young. Isabella had seen him at the market. He was her father's age, maybe older. His hair was gray, his face wrinkled. "But he's very old," Isabella said hesitantly. Her father's face hardened. "Don't be disrespectful. Lord William is a wealthy man. He will give us land, and you will be comfortable in his manor." This word sounded like a lie to Isabella's ears at that moment, but she couldn't speak up. Because a little girl does what her father says. The following years were a countdown. Each passing day brought that day a little closer. That day, the wedding day. Other girls in the village were marrying too. Agnes married very young. So did Beatrice, both to men much older than themselves. Agnes's husband was in his 40s. Beatrice's perhaps in his 50s. "Why?" Isabella had asked her mother one day. "Why do they marry us so young?" Her mother paused, then took a deep breath. "Because girls are a burden, my dear," she said quietly. "As they grow, they eat more food, need more clothes, require more dowry. But if we marry them early, the burden lessens, and they are safe in another family." Safe. This word was also a lie. But at that time, Isabella didn't yet know. When she saw Agnes after her marriage, the girl had changed. There was an emptiness in her eyes. She no longer smiled like before. One day, while drawing water from the well, she came to Isabella. "Run," she whispered. "Run while there's still time." "Where?" asked Isabella. But Agnes didn't answer. She just took the water and left. That night, Agnes's husband violently punished her because she had prepared the meal late. The whole village heard her screams, but no one intervened, because there was husband's right, because he was disciplining his wife, because this was normal. When Isabella reached marriageable age, her father said, "You will marry this summer." It was no longer, "When you grow up." It was now. The girl's heart began to race. "But I still want to study," she said desperately. At the monastery, nuns taught some noble girls to read and write. Her father laughed. It was a bitter laugh. "Girls don't study. Girls stay at home. You are of marriageable age now, and a woman's place is in her husband's home." She was still very young. She still had toy dolls. She still loved climbing trees. She still felt safe when she hugged her mother, but now she would become a bride. Wedding preparations began. A white wedding dress was made, too big for Isabella. The sleeves passed her wrists, the skirt dragged on the ground. "You'll grow into it," said the seamstress woman. But there was pain in her voice, as if she knew, as if she saw her own story in Isabella. When the wedding night came, all the women of the village gathered. They washed Isabella, dressed her, combed her hair, applied powder to her face. When she looked in the mirror, the girl couldn't recognize herself. That wasn't Isabella, that was a bride. "How beautiful you've become," her mother said. But there were tears in her eyes. "Mother, why are you crying?" Isabella asked. "From happiness," her mother said, but the tremor in her voice betrayed the lie. Old women came and whispered to her, "Be patient tonight, my child. The first night is difficult, but it passes." Isabella didn't exactly know what these words meant, but there was fear inside her, causeless but deep fear. Agnes, who had married very young, approached at one point. She whispered in her ear, "You will endure. There's no other way." "Endure what?" Isabella asked, but Agnes didn't answer. She just squeezed her hand and left. If you also want to support my channel, don't forget to subscribe and like the video for new content. When she was taken to the church, Isabella's hands were trembling, not from cold, from fear. He stood at the church door. She would see him so closely for the first time, the man who would be her husband. His hair was gray, his face was wrinkled, his hands were 3 times bigger than Isabella's, rough, calloused, bearing the marks of years spent with soil and sword. He smiled at the girl, but there was no warmth in his smile, only ownership. As if buying a horse, as if buying a field, he looked at her. The priest began to say the words. Isabella wasn't listening. She only heard the sound of her own breathing, shallow, rapid, the sound of panic. Her hands were ice cold. Her heartbeat was ringing in her ears. And then those words came. "Do you accept?" She couldn't make a sound. Her lips didn't move. The priest repeated, "Do you accept?" Someone from behind, her mother, nudged her shoulder. "Say yes," she whispered in her ear. "Say yes, or we'll be disgraced." And Isabella, like a child, because she was still a child, obeyed her mother. "Yes," she said. Her voice was very weak, barely heard, but it was enough. Now she was married. The priest prayed, "In the presence of God, I declare you husband and wife." Isabella thought, did God allow this? Was he willing for such a young girl to be married to an old man? But no one was asking these questions, because this was a sacred marriage, because this was God's will. They drew a veil over her face. Thomas, now her husband, approached her face and kissed her forehead. His lips were cold, bone dry. Isabella's stomach churned, but she didn't vomit, because a bride doesn't vomit. A bride smiles. During the wedding feast, all the people of the village were celebrating. Music was playing. People were dancing. But Isabella sat, silently looking at her plate. She couldn't eat. Her stomach was tight. There was a lump in her throat. As the night progressed, the music decreased. People began to leave. And then, that moment came. Old women surrounded her. "Come, bride, it's time," they said. Isabella stood up. Her legs were trembling. They took her to a manor, Thomas's manor. Now it was supposed to be Isabella's too. It was a stone-walled, cold, dark place. When she entered, the humid air filled her lungs. Old wood, incense, and another smell. A sharp, heavy smell. The women took her to a room. They removed the wedding dress, dressed her in a thin nightgown. "The room is yours now," they said. "Be good to your husband. Be patient. May God be pleased." And then they left. The door closed. Isabella was completely alone. In the middle of the room was a bed, a big, dark, frightening bed. The girl sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands were trembling on her knees. The door would open. He would enter. And then, but she didn't know. Then, her mother hadn't told her. Agnes hadn't told her. Beatrice hadn't told her. They had only said, "You will endure." But endure what? The door opened. Thomas entered with heavy, slow steps. He closed the door and turned to Isabella. There was something in his eyes. The girl didn't know what it was, but it was frightening. "Don't be afraid," he said. His voice was hoarse, raspy. "We'll just do what married couples are supposed to do." Isabella didn't understand what he meant. He came toward the bed. He sat next to her. He reached out and touched Isabella's face. His hand was cold, rough. The girl pulled back. "Don't be afraid," Thomas said again. "You'll get used to it." But Isabella didn't want to get used to it. She wanted to run. She wanted to cry. But she couldn't make a sound. Because a woman doesn't cry. A bride doesn't resist. His hand touched Isabella's neck, her shoulder. With each touch, the girl's insides clenched. Then, Thomas took out a handkerchief. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "I will take this handkerchief to your mother. It will show that you are an honorable bride." At that moment, Isabella didn't understand. But later, when it was too late, she understood. The handkerchief would be proof, so everyone would know. She was honorable. There was no need to tell what happened that night, because some pains cannot be expressed in words. Some things should remain in silence, but this was certain. A very young body was not ready. A very young soul was broken. A very young person died a little that night. When morning came, Isabella couldn't get out of bed. There was such pain in her body that even breathing was difficult. Thomas took the handkerchief and left. "I'm taking it to your mother," he said. "Let her be proud, proud." But Isabella was dying inside. Days passed, weeks passed, months passed. Every night, the same thing repeated. Every night, she had to lie in that bed. Every night, her body was touched, not with her permission, not by force either, but as a right. Because that's what marriage meant. Marriage meant a man's right to touch his wife's body whenever he wanted. She tried to speak. "It hurts," she said to him one night. Thomas stopped. He looked at the girl. Then he laughed. "You'll get used to it," he said. "All women get used to it." But Isabella didn't get used to it. Each time, she broke a little more. Sometimes during the day, her mother would come. "How are you, my child?" she would ask. What could Isabella say? "I'm fine," she said. "I've gotten used to it." Because what else could be said? Agnes came one day too. She sat next to her. They were silent for a long time. Then Agnes said, "You too?" Isabella nodded. "Me too," Agnes said. And at that moment, Isabella saw something in her eyes, a shared pain, a shared helplessness. "Did you try to run away?" Isabella asked. "Once," Agnes said quietly. "But they brought me back, and my husband. He punished me." She showed her arm. There were bruises, old bruises, yellowed, but still visible. "What can we do?" Agnes shrugged. "We'll endure. There's no other way." 3 months later, Isabella's nausea began. Her mother understood immediately. "You're with child," she said. There was joy in her eyes, but also fear. With child. A body not yet out of childhood was growing another life inside. Isabella was afraid. So afraid that she couldn't sleep at night, because she had heard the stories that young women died in childbirth, babies too big, bodies too small, and then blood, pain, death. Beatrice had given birth very young. The baby was stillborn. And Beatrice was very ill afterward. She had caught an infection. She lay in fever for a week. The priest had prayed, God's will. But was it God who killed Beatrice? Or was it forcing a very young body to give birth? As the months passed, Isabella's belly grew. She could no longer get up. Back pain began. Her legs swelled. Her mother made vegetable soup. "Get strong," she said. "Birth will be difficult." Birth would be difficult, because Isabella's body wasn't mature enough to deliver a baby. Labor pains began in the middle of the night. It was such pain that Isabella screamed. The midwife was called. She came, looked, shook her head. "It will be difficult," she said. Too young. Hours passed, maybe days. Isabella didn't know. There was only pain, endless, uninterrupted pain. The midwife was shouting, "Push, push!" But Isabella was already pushing, but the baby wasn't coming out, because it couldn't, because the body was too small. Her mother was holding her hand. "You'll endure, my child," she was saying. But there was no longer belief in her voice, because she also knew this could mean death. Finally, the baby was born. It was a boy. He didn't cry. The midwife shook her head. "He's not breathing," she said. Just 2 words. But those 2 words extinguished the last hopes inside Isabella. She had carried him for 9 months. She had suffered for 9 months. And now, nothing. Only emptiness. Thomas entered the room. He looked at the baby. Then he looked at Isabella. "At least it was a boy," he said. "Maybe the next one will live. The next one." As if Isabella were a machine. As if her only function was to produce babies. He didn't even allow her to experience the pain of the dead baby. He just said, "The next one." Her recovery took a long time. The midwife said, "You're lucky. Most young women die. You lived. But was this living? Is this state called living?" There were wounds on her body. Her soul was wounded too. But no one was asking how she was. No one cared. Because a woman must endure. A mother must be strong. Months later, she became pregnant again. This time, she experienced the same pain. But the baby lived. It was a girl. Thomas was disappointed. "A girl?" he said. "I wanted a son." But when Isabella looked at that girl, she saw herself. A newborn, innocent, unknowing baby. And a thought formed inside her. Would she also experience the same fate? Would she be married very young, to an old man? Years passed. Isabella gave birth to 5 children. 2 died. 3 lived. 2 girls. 1 son. She was 30 now. But her appearance resembled someone 45. There were dozens of scars on her body. Her soul was shattered. Her daughters grew up. Her eldest daughter, Eleanor, was now of marriageable age. And yesterday, Thomas said, "It's time to marry Eleanor." Isabella's heart stopped. "No," she said. "She's too young." "You were young too," Thomas said. "But you got used to it. She will too." "No," Isabella said louder. "I won't let her experience this." Thomas raised his hand. He slapped the woman. "Know your place," he said. "Eleanor will marry. That's final." Isabella fell to the ground. Her face hurt. But the real pain was inside, because she knew she couldn't save Eleanor, just as no one had saved her. That night, Eleanor came to her. "Mother, will I marry?" she asked. There was fear in her eyes. "Yes," Isabella said quietly. "But I don't want to marry," Eleanor said. "I want to stay at the monastery. I want to study with the nuns." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. The monastery. What a beautiful dream. But dreams didn't live in this world. "You will endure," Isabella said. The same words. The words Agnes had told her. The words her mother had told her. And now she was telling her own daughter. Eleanor cried. Isabella hugged her. She was sobbing in her chest. And Isabella, she could only hold her. She couldn't do anything else. Eleanor's wedding was held a week later. She was very young. Her husband was 45. The same story, the same pain, the same helplessness. When she put on the wedding dress, Isabella looked at her. She looked like herself. The same fear, the same bewilderment, the same dead eyes. "Mother," Eleanor said, "I'm scared." "I know," Isabella said. "Can I endure?" Isabella couldn't answer, because she didn't know. Had she endured, or had she just survived? In the church, the priest said the same words. "Do you accept?" Eleanor was silent. Isabella didn't nudge her. She just looked. And Eleanor, looking into her mother's eyes, said, "Yes." Now she was married. After that night, Eleanor changed. The light in her eyes went out. There was no smile left on her face. Sometimes she would come to Isabella. She would cry, but she wouldn't say anything, because there was nothing to say. Isabella knew, because she had lived it. And now, Her younger daughter, Matilda, was still a child. Thomas had said last week, "We'll marry Matilda soon too." Very young, even younger than Eleanor. Yesterday, Matilda had come to her. "Mother," she had said, "what will I be when I grow up?" Isabella had barely held back her tears. "You'll grow up," she had said. "And then? You'll marry." "Why?" Matilda had asked. An innocent question. Because that's how it is," Isabella had said. "But I want to ride horses when I grow up," Matilda had said. "I see Father's horses. They're so beautiful. I want to ride like that too. Ride horses." How many dreams did these girls have, and how many came true? Now, Isabella was looking out the window. In the courtyard, Matilda was playing with her toy doll. She was so tiny, still a child, but in a few years, maybe sooner, she would walk the same path. She would be taken to the same church. She would say the same words. She would be put in the same bed. And Isabella would be here again, looking out the window again, feeling helpless again. She pressed her hand against the glass. The glass was cold. Outside, snow had begun to fall, white, silent, covering snow. It would cover everything. It would hide everything. Isabella closed her eyes, and she thought, maybe one day, under the snow, everything would be forgotten. The pains, the screams, the tears, all would disappear under a white cover. But not now. Now, there was only cold, and silence, and snow. Don't forget to leave a heart in the comments for the lost children of the Middle Ages. See you in the next story.